Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I rise today to speak in support of the debate on the appropriation bills. And in fact, our budget, this Labor budget, is focused on relief, resilience and reform that delivers for all Australians. And that's why this budget is delivering more tax cuts, a stronger Medicare and a fair go at home ownership. It's delivering more cost of living relief, helping build an economy that works for more people. Now, we know that people are doing it really tough right now. And of course, cost of living pressures have been compounded by the conflict in the Middle East, while at the same time we face long-standing challenges when it comes to productivity, intergenerational equity and access to housing. Over the past 2 decades, house prices have risen by around 400% and incomes have not kept pace. We just can't ignore this problem at all and the impact that it's having on Australians, particularly young people with aspirations of home ownership. So we are taking action and overhauling the rules for negative gearing and capital gains tax. These changes have been carefully designed to help more Australians into homes and encourage the kind of market activity that leads to more supply. We're also making other very important changes to Australia's tax system. The package of tax reform and relief in this budget will reduce the tax burden for over 13 million workers, support 75,000 more homeowners into the housing market, deliver over $3.5 billion in new measures to lower taxes for businesses and reduce compliance costs by $540 million a year. Deputy Speaker, this is an ambitious Labor budget because the Albanese Labor government is committed to building resilience, bolstering the economy and delivering for businesses, first home buyers and future generations of Australians. The budget's about more cost of living relief, more Medicare, more aged care and more housing. The budget contains the most significant tax reform package in more than a quarter of a century. This package of tax reform and tax relief is about making our economy work in the interests of more Australians, more Australian businesses and all those future generations. It's a package that's pro-aspiration, pro-worker and pro-investment. The budget delivers a new and permanent tax cut for Australian workers. Every working Australian will benefit from the $250 Working Australians tax offset, along with the $1,000 instant tax deduction. The Working Australians tax offset will begin to apply for income earned from work for the second half of 2027 and will automatically reduce workers' tax liability for the 27-28 income year. It will lift the effective tax-free threshold for eligible workers by almost $1,800. This is the largest permanent increase of the effective tax-free threshold since 2012-13. This new offset will provide responsible cost of living relief and help make the tax system much fairer for workers. It will help Australian workers to keep more of what they earn, incentivise participation for lower income workers and, very importantly, help with the cost of living. The $1,000 instant tax deduction will allow workers to deduct up to $1,000 off their taxable income without having to keep receipts, and what a big difference that will make. These measures all build on the legislated tax cuts starting in July 26 and July 2027. The combined benefit to an Australian worker on average earnings of our 3 tax cuts, new tax offset and instant tax deduction will be up to $2,816 from 2027-28. We're also making changes to ensure more equal and sustainable treatment between workers earning a living from wages and those with income from assets held in trusts. Currently, discretionary trusts allow some Australians, often high-wealth individuals and families, to plan their tax affairs in ways that aren't available to most people. From 2028-29, a minimum 30% tax rate will apply to discretionary trusts. This will make the tax system fairer and more sustainable by aligning tax paid by trusts more closely with the income tax rates paid by the very vast majority of Australians. Importantly, primary production income earned through discretionary trusts will remain exempt, recognising the unique income volatility and seasonal nature of farming businesses. In this budget, we're creating a fairer system for first home buyers and future generations. And our reforms are about helping more Australians buy a home, encouraging investment in new housing supply and helping to fund new tax cuts for workers. Fixing the tax treatment of capital gains is necessary so that it operates as originally intended by helping to ensure investment flows where it's most productive. We're replacing the 50% capital gains tax discount with inflation-adjusted indexation to restore the taxation of real gains. We're also establishing a minimum tax rate of 30% on realised gains. Importantly, income support recipients, including pensioners, will be exempt from the minimum rate. These changes apply from 1 July 2027 to all assets except new builds, where both new and old arrangements will be available to choose from. Any gains made up to the 1 July 2027 will be treated under the old rules. We know that early stage and start-up businesses, particularly in the tech sector, have unique features, and further consultations being undertaken with stakeholders to clarify the details for implementations for these kinds of businesses. We're also limiting negative gearing for residential properties to new builds that add to the supply of housing that we desperately need. For properties purchased after the 12th of May 2026, negative gearing can be used until 27-28. For all existing investments made before 12 May 26, negative gearing arrangements will remain absolutely unchanged. These changes to the tax system will help around 75,000 Australians to get into the market over the next decade. This is the equivalent to reversing around a decade of decline in Australia's home ownership rate. All of this, when combined with our other massive housing reforms in the budget, these changes will boost supply of housing by another 30,000 homes over 10 years, which are all desperately needed. The budget, really importantly, also includes an investment of a further $2 billion in a new local infrastructure fund for enabling infrastructure. The enabling infrastructure, of course, refers to roads, water, power and other systems required for all these housing projects to go ahead. And this funding will be provided to local governments and state utility providers responsible for this infrastructure. And access to the fund will require state-based reforms to improve productivity in the housing sector. This means faster and simpler approvals, freeing up more land to build new homes and the delivery of a consistent national construction code. The local infrastructure fund will support up to 65,000 more homes over 10 years, and reforms to cut red tape have the potential to support tens of thousands of additional homes, as well as reducing regulation costs by up to $3 billion a year. This brings the value of our Homes for Australia plan to more than $47 billion, a massive investment. We're also committing $59.4 million of funding to community housing providers to help secure social housing for more than 4,000 eligible young people at risk of homelessness. Now, Deputy Speaker, very importantly on this budget, we did as we always do, strengthen Medicare and deliver better health outcomes, because we're committed to delivering on all of our plans like cheaper medicines, a stronger Medicare, more bulk billing, more doctors and nurses and more urgent care clinics. In this budget, we've committed $1.8 billion over 5 years and more than $500 million ongoing to make urgent care clinics permanent, a great initiative. These clinics provide fully bulk billed and accessible care, taking pressure off hospitals and making life easier for so many Australians that use these services. And in my electorate of Richmond, more than 5,400 people have visited the Tweed Heads Medicare Urgent Care Clinic since it opened in December last year, delivering vital reform for access to health care for locals. We're also, as part of this budget, delivering a landmark $25 billion in additional funding for state and territory hospitals to reach a record $220.3 billion over 5 years. We're investing $5.9 billion in this budget to list new medicines on the PBS, including treatments for cystic fibrosis, chronic kidney disease, some cancers and many more. And since July 2022, our government has funded over 430 new or amended PBS medicines. And when it comes to cheaper medicines, across my region, we've had more than 2.6 million scripts for cheaper medicines that have been filled. That's making a huge difference to so many people in my region. Also, Deputy Speaker, earlier this year, our government took immediate and effective action following the outbreak of the crisis in the Middle East and the absolute disruption of the global fuel supply. We cut the fuel excise by more than half, reduced the heavy vehicle road user charge, to zero for 3 months and double penalties for major breaches of consumer laws. We've also secured more than 1 billion litres of extra fuel from March to June by relaxing the minimum stockholding obligation, underwriting additional cargoes and adjusting fuel standards. And now we're focused on building up reserves for the future and ensuring Australia's energy sovereignty. And in this budget, we saw our government establish a $3.2 billion government-controlled Australian Fuel Security Reserve and increasing Australia's diesel and jet fuel reserves to 50 days. It's so vitally important that we do that. And we're also taking action to secure more gas for Australian homes and businesses through a domestic gas reservation scheme. And this scheme will require gas exporters to supply around 20% of exports to the Australian market. This will put downward pressure on domestic prices while shielding our market from global price volatility and making us more resilient to any potential supply shortfalls. And of course, Deputy Speaker, as in all budgets, we're backing businesses and backing small businesses with this budget. We know that the key to higher wages and higher living standards is lifting productivity, and small businesses and start-ups are an important part of that. And this budget contains $3.5 billion in new measures aimed at lowering taxes for businesses, increasing cash flow and supporting growth to boost investment. New measures include making the $20,000 instant asset write-off permanent. This will give businesses more certainty and allow them to invest in themselves with confidence. It's anticipated this change will slash compliance costs for small businesses by around $32 million a year, saving over 350,000 hours on record keeping, and deliver around $890 million in cash flow support over the next 5 years. And of course, Deputy Speaker, there's so much more in this budget in providing assistance to Australians right across the board. So many measures that we do have, particularly indexation of many social security payments, and of course more than $3 billion for aged care, including more beds and more packages. We know how vital this is, particularly in my electorate, particularly with the large number of senior Australians that we have. This is an issue, and we've responded to that with more beds and more packages as well. We've also, of course, got over $180 million in this budget to make the child support scheme safer and fairer, helping to ensure single parents and their kids get the support they need. Also in the budget, more than $27 million to reduce prices for essential groceries across remote Australia. So right across the country, wherever that need is, we have really addressed this with this budget. And this really is a Labor budget built for resilience in incredibly uncertain times and incredibly uncertain global times. Yet at the same time, we are reforming for the future and addressing particularly that intergenerational equity that we've spoken about and that people raise all the time. And we've done that through our reforms with negative gearing and capital gains tax. And this budget recognises the absolute pressures that Australians are facing today, while we're also taking on the long-term challenges that have in fact been ignored for too long, particularly when it came to housing. We saw the previous government that just ignored the housing crisis, and it built up worse and worse for years. And since day one, since we've been in government, we've invested a massive amount in all areas of housing, whether it's that 5% deposit or whether it's now making these important reforms, plus our massive investment in social and affordable housing and our massive building right across the country. We are absolutely committed to making sure that Australians, particularly young Australians, can access home ownership. And we are in this budget delivering cost of living relief without losing sight of productivity, housing supply, energy security, as I mentioned, and that really important intergenerational fairness. And this budget invests in workers, backs small businesses, strengthens Medicare, one of the biggest issues in my electorate, accessing health care. And we've seen almost over 30 now GP clinics that are now fully bulk billing. It's making a huge difference to locals. This budget also supports vulnerable Australians and really, at the end of it, also helps more people achieve the security of their own home. Because we want to build an economy that works for everyone, no matter where you live, and particularly for areas like mine in regional Australia, this budget really provides a lot of assistance. And we want to build an economy that's stronger, that's fairer, and really importantly, more resilient to the many global shocks that we have seen. And we're building that economy not just for today, but for future generations of Australians, particularly through our housing reforms to ensure there's an even playing field for younger Australians. And the response to this has been overwhelming because young people have had so many difficulties in accessing housing. But this is a government that acts right across the board in terms of providing support now and building for future generations.
I thank the member.